What is up, girls and guys? Welcome to another episode of Crash Bike Rebuild. Today we're going to have a look at the general health of the engine. We are going to check the valve clearances are still in spec. If not, we'll put some shims in and get that all spec'd up. We're also going to do a compression test and we're going to check out the clutch. As always, if you guys like what we're doing, smash the subscribe button, smash the like button, and smash the bell icon to get updates on any further content we do. Pow!
So after an hour of fucking pissing about, we finally got the, you know the name of it? Crank plug off after pissing about for an hour. And that's what it looks like after trying to get it off for an hour. 2 holes and a wood hammer chisel later, we finally got the fucker off.
Yeah, so the previous owner torqued this thing to fucking God knows what torque. The actual torque rating for this thing is like 10 foot-pounds, which is literally just enough to squash the O-ring and then it's done. But
if you can see there, we've actually stripped it because it was so tight from the previous owner, as you can see right there. But it's off now, and now we're going to be able to check the valve clearance, pop the gasket back on, and fucking hope to God it works.
Also, these little gaskets, provided that they're not worn or cracked in any way, or if you didn't destroy them when taking them out, it's perfectly fine to reuse them. So these ones look perfectly okay, so we'll be keeping those. Right, Ski Poppy. Now we need to get the rear cylinder to top dead center. I need to just figure out, when I said the front was on the wrong stroke, I think we need to have it at top dead center on the compression stroke and not the exhaust stroke. I'll confirm that. So now I've got top dead center. Okay, so now that we've measured everything, we can see that everything is in spec except for the rear left exhaust valve, which is 0.15, and the minimum tolerance here is 0.20. So what we'll do is we'll get the shim out, we'll go to the motorbike shop, and we'll get the appropriate shim. Okay, so very, very importantly, when removing camshafts from your engine, it's very, very, very important to know where your cams are sitting at top dead center. Otherwise you're going to have a very, very bad time. So luckily on this engine, we don't have a cam chain running over the top here. We've got the cam chain running this gear here, which the camshafts then mesh onto, which is cool. That makes it much easier. So we don't have a cam chain that's going to fall down into the engine when we take these out. So what we're doing here is, generally you'll have markings on the wheels or something to give you an indication of the orientation of these wheels. So what Scotty's doing now is he's taking pictures of the exact orientation of where these are before we pull these cam journals out and before we take the camshafts out. Because we're going to have to get the camshafts out in order to get some shims in the bucket to get this back to spec. Okay, so now I'll very carefully get the shim out of here. Use a little magnetic stick. Pull that out there. Do some maths. Figure out what shim you need. And generally, if it's 1 or 2 shims you need for the job, you can go to your local bike shop and the mechanics are generally quite happy to swap them. So I'll go to the bike shop, have a chat with them and see, because this is the only valve that's actually out of spec. Okay, now that we've got all this stuff lubed up with assembly lube, we can check our valve clearance on this problematic port for the final time. We're expecting 0.25 mils, which is exactly in spec. And as we can see, we've got our feeler straight in there. Right, so now this cylinder's perfectly happy. It's time to button her up. So also just inspect your valve cover gasket. These can generally be reused for a very long time, provided they're not cracked or damaged. Just a little bit of lube on the mating face here. We can install our new crank plug here. Our old one, I had to absolutely manhandle this thing to get it out. Some clown over-torqued it to begin with, so it was a mission getting out. I ended up getting it out with a very sharp chisel and just hammering it out slowly, piece by piece, or mil by mil. So I got a brand new one. It was cheap, very cheap. And then got a new O-ring for it. Why not?
If you're gonna leave, I'ma let you go. I'm tired of the pain. Go away. I'm tired.
So I got to next I'm gonna do this bad boy. Right, now, please, ladies and gentlemen, there's one thing you learn from this video. Torque this appropriately. It's the last buffoon that did this. Really fucked the whole thing up. This is only 15 Newton meters of torque. There it is. Also, the important thing with your torque wrenches, if you're using the micrometer style like I am, just wind it back to 0. No pressure on the spring. Leave your lock nut unlocked, and that's how you store your tool. Because if you store it all wound up, you stretch the spring inside and then you decalibrate it. So it's an important thing to remember. Okay, boys and girls, so that is the top end all looked after. Our valve clearances are now all in spec, which is great. Just put a bit of assembly lube on the cam faces and all that just to protect it a bit, especially when we turn the engine over quickly just to check our compression. So that's cool. Torqued all of that to spec, torqued the covers to spec, torqued the generator covers to spec, torqued our plug to spec, and torqued our inspection hole to spec. So that is pretty much the engine. Last thing left for us to do is to just check the health of the clutch. If everything is fine there, we can button up the engine, put it aside, and then get ready for our stuff to come back from the powder coaters, which is going tomorrow morning, so I'm super amped about that. Yeah, so we'll need to rebuild the calipers, rebuild the forks once we're done with the engine, and then hopefully our stuff will be done at the powder coaters and we can get a rolling chassis together. So, as always, hope you're enjoying what we're doing. If you do enjoy what we're doing, don't hesitate to smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, also leave a comment what you'd like to see, what you'd like more of, what you'd like us to stop, as it helps us make better content. Thank you very much for watching. Peace!